You wake up and immediately reach for your phone. You scroll through updates, numbers, notifications, tasks. Somewhere between all that data and dopamine, the day begins. But before you even take your first conscious breath, you're already running towards something, or maybe away from something. You tell yourself it's ambition, that you're building a future, creating meaning, chasing success. But sometimes, late at night, when the noise finally fades and you're left alone with your own heartbeat, a small voice whispers, "Why do I feel so empty? Why does everything I do seem to lead me further away from myself?" This is what it means to lose yourself in the hustle. It doesn't happen all at once. It's slow, subtle. You trade pieces of your soul for approval, for progress, for belonging. And before you notice, the person you were becomes a ghost behind the person you've become. We live in a culture that glorifies exhaustion. Busyness has become a badge of honor. We measure our worth by how little we rest, how much we produce, how fast we move. But no one ever stops to ask, what are we actually moving toward? We assume that speed equals purpose, that progress means happiness. But more often than not, we're just running in circles, faster and faster, hoping the dizziness feels like meaning. You tell yourself it's temporary, that you'll slow down one day, that all this grinding will pay off. But deep down, you know the truth. You're not chasing success. You're escaping silence. Because silence is where the truth lives, and truth is terrifying when you've built a life around avoiding it. You work so hard to become someone the world will applaud that you forget to become someone you actually like. Every achievement feels good for a moment, then fades, leaving a strange emptiness behind. So you chase the next goal, thinking the next milestone will finally make it feel real. But it never does. You can't outrun what you refuse to face. And the more you build your life around external validation, the less of yourself remains inside. You start to notice it in small ways. You forget what you used to love. You stop feeling deeply. You find yourself scrolling without thinking, working without joy, speaking without sincerity. You wear your exhaustion like armor because you're afraid of what would happen if you stopped. If you stopped, everything might collapse. And maybe, just maybe, you would have to meet yourself again. But that's exactly what needs to happen. Because what you've built, the endless hustle, the constant proving, is not a home. It's a cage. And every time you push harder, you reinforce the bars. We weren't designed to live like machines. We were made for rhythm, for balance, for silence between the noise, for stillness between the motion. When every moment becomes a transaction, it's time for money, effort for approval. Life loses its sacredness. It's not that ambition is bad. It's that ambition without awareness becomes addiction. We convince ourselves we're moving forward, but we're really just running away, from boredom, from doubt, from the quiet truth that we don't know who we are anymore. So let me ask you, when was the last time you stopped? Not because you were forced to, but because you chose to. When was the last time you did nothing without guilt? When was the last time you heard your own thoughts clearly without a screen echoing them back to you? If those questions make you uncomfortable, it's because you already know the answer. You've been moving so fast that you've forgotten the sound of your own voice, but there's still a way back. And it begins where the world ends, in stillness, in the space between doing and being, in that quiet moment when you stop trying to perform and finally start to listen. Because the truth is, the version of you that's buried under all this noise isn't gone. It's waiting. It's waiting in the silence you've been avoiding. It's waiting in the boredom you've been filling. It's waiting in the ache you feel when you realize that none of this feels real anymore. You haven't lost yourself. You've just forgotten where to look. The way back to yourself begins quietly. It doesn't start with a grand decision or a dramatic change. It starts with a pause, a single breath taken without a goal. A moment where you let the weight of everything you've been carrying finally rest. In that stillness, you'll feel the withdrawal, the craving to reach for your phone, to check, to scroll, to plan, to move. That urge is the proof of how far you've drifted. We've all been conditioned to treat silence like an enemy, but silence is not empty. It's full of truth waiting to be heard. You don't need to abandon your work, your dreams, or your ambitions. You just need to remember why you started and who you were before the world told you who to become. The hustle isn't evil, it's just incomplete. Action without reflection drains the soul. But when action is born from awareness, it becomes creation. The goal isn't to stop striving, it's to start being while you strive. Somewhere along the line, we replaced meaning with measurement, likes instead of love, productivity instead of purpose, progress instead of peace. We forgot that the most important things in life can't be tracked on a screen. No metric can measure connection. No algorithm can quantify the quiet joy of simply existing. You can't outsource meaning. You have to live it. You have to build it from the inside out. And that means slowing down enough to listen to what your life is actually saying to you. Ask yourself, what am I chasing? And what would happen if I stopped? Would I collapse or would I finally breathe? Truth is, you're not behind. You're not failing. You're not late. You're just disconnected. And that disconnection can be healed. Every time you take a deep breath instead of checking your phone, you take one step back toward yourself. Every time you choose rest over performance, you teach your nervous system that peace is not laziness. Every time you sit in silence long enough to hear your own thoughts, you begin to remember the sound of your soul. And slowly, you start to return. You begin to see life again, not as a race, but as rhythm. You start to feel things again, not just excitement or stress, but real feeling, deep and steady. You stop existing like a brand and start living like a person. The world around you won't change immediately. The noise will still be there, demanding attention. But inside, something begins to shift. The noise loses its control. You no longer feel owned by your schedule, your image, your to-do list. You start to move differently, slower but more precise. You start to speak differently, talk less but with meaning. You start to live differently. Not because you've escaped the hustle, but because you've remembered who you are within it. There will still be days when you forget, days when the world feels louder than your soul, but you'll also know how to find your way back. You'll know that peace isn't somewhere far away. It's one breath away. It's always been here, waiting under the noise. And one day, you'll wake up and realize something small but profound. You don't need to prove anything anymore. Not to the world. Not to anyone. Not even to yourself. Because you finally remember that your value doesn't come from what you do. It comes from what you are, and what you are is not a machine. You are a being made for depth, for stillness, for connection, for love. So slow down. Not because you're weak, but because you're wise. Not because you've failed, but because you've seen through the illusion. The hustle will never end, but your need to be consumed by it can. Take your life back, one quiet choice at a time. Put down the noise. Step out of the race, breathe, look around, listen. The world is still here. And so are you, because you were never lost. You were just too busy to notice yourself. Now you're home,